Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Goat.
Yes,
Yay!
sir.
Go Goats, go Goats.
Still love the intro.
So much. So much. It makes you want to actually do the sport you love.
I know.
Go train right now.
I feel like getting those ropes out and really working the ropes. Not really, but
Well, jumping rope. I could do that. Yeah.
yeah. I actually tried to jump rope the other day. I could do it for a while. It was good.
Okay.
I was trying to teach my grandson how to jump rope, and it's harder to teach somebody to do that than just to do it. So I want you to know that I was still able to do it. So that's important.
Okay. Good job, Julie.
Thank you.
I love the jumping rope. I would get really good at it, do all the crosses, thinking I was all bad because that was the Rocky era.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
You know, I was there. I grew up in that. It's like, oh, you got to know how to do that if you're an athlete.
Sure. Yeah.
It's still one of the best exercises holistically. Total body, coordination, a lot of good conditioning, everything.
It really is. And it warms you up faster than anything. It's like people that use that as a warm up. That's a great thing to warm up with. It's shaking your body. It's moving it. I'm shaking here like this. So last week we had
Tony.
Yep,
Oh,
Coach
man.
T.
Yeah, Tony Winningham.
Tony Winningham. That was such a cool episode.
Love the
man.
Absolutely, the story of adversity and challenges and taking those things and not only being the fuel that pushes you, but to be what you use as the tools to inspire the next generation. I thought that was very, very, very enriching that what he does.
I would want my child to role model after him, man. It's like this kid doesn't quit, man. This is good. He's going. He's making stuff happen.
What I loved about him is that he found a way to still be involved with basketball, which is what he loved. Maybe it's not playing directly or playing professionally, but he's still keeping himself involved in any way that he can. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Exactly. So tonight's episode is about a topic that is really kind of like we don't want to say it's taboo, but if you're a coach, if you're a teacher and you hear the word suicide, you're anybody out there that knows what's going on in our world. This is a very serious issue right now. And people still struggle to talk about it.
Let me just pop this up real quick before we bring Gwen on.
Yes.
This graphic. Look at this. Emergency department visits for suicide attempts among girls ages 12 to 17 has increased by 51% since the pandemic started.
Wow.
Yeah, that to me, that is epidemic. That's pandemic.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that.
Wow, that's a lot.
And it's also the second leading cause for young adults between the age of, let's see, what is the age? 10 and 34. Second leading cause of death.
Wow.
In that age group. So it's an important topic that needs to be talked about. And September is Suicide Awareness Prevention Month. And we're in the last day of September. So I'm glad we were able to sneak this in this month. Just a little self-disclosure on my part. Suicide is kind of a big deal to me. My kids, I've talked about it a little bit before on this show, but my kids are 23 and 20. And in their age group, more than 10 kids have died. Now, not all of those have been suicide, but a bulk of them have been suicide. And then the next category is drug overdose, which
and this is just friends or people that they knew, or
yes, a lot of them friends, and then other are acquaintances down the line. The most recent one was my daughter's boyfriend committed suicide back in April.
Right.
So it's something that has hit home for us, and it's a big deal. I've been talking about it for a long time, that our young people are really struggling right now. And I think that was even before the pandemic. I think the pandemic has made it worse.
Oh boy.
So a little bit dear to my heart. That's why I wanted to be on this show today. But should we introduce Gwen?
Yeah,
We can get into it.
on.
Gwen she's a board member of Kansas City Suicide Awareness and Prevention Program. She's also the director of advocacy and prevention for Synergy Services, which is a nonprofit agency here in town that does a lot of great work. I know about them personally also. Then their mission is to create a community free of family violence. So she's got a lot of experience in this area. In Missouri and in Alabama. So with that, shall I bring her on?
Bring her on.
Yeah, come on.
There she is. Hi, Gwen.
Hello. Hi, Julie. Good to
Gwen.
see you. Hello.
Yes, good to see you. Thank you for being on our show today. We really appreciate it. It's an important topic that I hope you can provide some information for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to connect with you again.
Yeah, no doubt.
I have all kinds of questions lined up, but some of the ones that I want to start with is, how did you become interested in this topic? Tell us a little bit about you and your journey along. This is a pretty tough area for people to go in and to talk about. And so my guess is there's a story.
Sure. So I'm a social worker by trade. So I've come to this work mostly from a professional position. And at Synergy Services, like Julie, you were kind of alluding to, we have a number of programs. We have several shelters. We have a large mental health department, outpatient counseling department. We have a maternity group home and transitional living for our young people. We have transitional housing for domestic violence survivors. So we see, quite frankly, we see an awful lot of trauma in this in this agency. And a couple of the programs that I'm involved with are the Children's Advocacy Center, where we do forensic interviews for child abuse cases, and also our school-based programming. And our school-based programming, of course, there's a lot of work being done in the community schools around about this topic, the signs of suicide assessments, just a lot of work. The schools are being hit hard with suicidality and completed suicides, and a lot of anxiety and depression and panic, and those sorts of things that we've seen. Like I think Julie, you said that before the pandemic, we were already seeing and have certainly escalated throughout. So
Gwen, can I ask a question with that? Like,
sure.
They're seeing, like, you're doing education, signs, looking for those things in schools. What if the teachers or staff or whoever do recognize some of these signs or have these conversations with the kids? A lot of them are like, I don't want to have them because then I got to do something. A lot of coaches that I work with, do I really want to open up the door and say, hey, how are you doing at home and with mental health issues? And so I know coaching the teachers to find these signs, but what do they do next?
Right. I think it is one of the major gaps that we have in the community. I'll just speak to Kansas City's community because I don't know a whole lot, beyond our community. I think that it's often a fear of what else do you do, right? When you approach it and somebody says, yeah, I am feeling a little bit this way or that way, and you go, oh, I was just wanting to ask. I don't actually know what to do on the back end. And we have a service shortage in the community. Yes. And so then it really, professional services are important. They are qualified clinicians and qualified helpers to address some of these needs. However, I think it's really important that our lay people, our community members, our family members, our educators have some skills to support families and to support children and youth when they respond with needs. There's a number of trainings that are out in the community that schools can get for their staff, that community members can get, they can engage in. Kansas City, KCSAP certainly offers a number of trainings. Some are identified specifically for clinicians and some are for lay people, just to know a little bit more about how to respond to people when they are struggling with a mental health concern.
So let's just start with our area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
we're a coach.
Yes.
We're a sports coach, and one of the kids shows a couple signs and says, I just wish I was dead.
Yeah.
What do they do at that point?
Yeah. I think there's a number of things. I think there's the group of young people who might say that I'm really struggling with this. I think I want to kill myself. I think I'm thinking about that. Then there's a whole other group of people who are not saying it. And the group that is not saying it is actually the group I tend to worry about a little bit more. I think a number of times, if you know people who are connected to someone who has died by suicide, and you hear that, I never would have imagined. I can't believe it was that person. I would have never thought it was that person. I think we hear that more often than we hear, gosh, I knew it was coming. They were really, really struggling every day. We were hoping that, they were getting help and doing some of that. We certainly hear both sides. So in answer to your question, it really becomes a holistic response, which is that we want to be checking in with everybody, not only the student athlete who is saying, hey, I'm really struggling, right? So it is a holistic approach.
That's actually my question.
What did they do? Like, what's their
first? More so, how do you even get that information out of them? Like, because again, basketball, for instance, there's certain times that you get there, you're getting around, everybody else is around you. You don't have that one-on-one time as much as you would want. So how do we even bring that up in our practice or at a tournament or at a game when that environment doesn't allow that intimacy, if you will?
Yeah. So I think one of the areas that I've worked the most in is child welfare. And so I'm going to sort of compare it to that for a minute, which is that we really want to create relationships with our young people that allow a space for them to feel safe to say what they need to say. And so whatever that is, someone's hurting me at home, I am not comfortable with, what happened in the game last week, or, I'm struggling with my mental health. But what we often do is focus in one area, and then we make those other things, I think I heard one of you say earlier, sort of taboo. So in child abuse work, we might say, we talk about child safety. So let's hold hands when we cross the street. Let's put our seatbelts on, and then we go and make sure nobody touches your privates, right? And we make it this really shameful, secretive kind of, I'm going to talk to you about it, but I'm not even going to talk to you about that in private. I'll tell you to put your seatbelt on in public all day long. But when we talk about those things as if they are serious and very private and shameful and vulnerable, and so when we create an environment that says, hi, everybody, this is what we're doing here today, and it's on your list of things I'm talking to you about. I hope everybody's grades are looking good because that's important to our team. I hope that everybody came hydrated today because that's important to our team. And I hope that everybody, is dealing with whatever. So I think there are some ways that we lay it out in a way that it's a piece of normalcy within our life that we're talking about.
I love that.
So that we don't have to go to every student athlete and say, and if you're feeling like you're going to hurt yourself, I want you to tell me, because that is like, I don't know, was I supposed to be? I feel like there's a tension that comes with that, instead of laying it out as an open way to handle our health and well-being. So again, hydrating, eating, sleeping, mental health, well-being. There's a whole list of things. So that's my first thought, is that we open it up as a conversation for everybody to feel safe talking about any area that they might be struggling with.
That's perfect.
When I do want to get, so Damien's a coach and he hears that. He hears, I'm thinking about hurting myself. First steps for a coach, what would it be? What do they do next?
Yeah. I think the very first thing to do always is to show appreciation for that student athlete for sharing that information. So welcoming the information is such a great first step. It also gives you a little bit of time to work out in your mind, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do here. So when you do some of that, thank you so much for trusting me with that information. That's a really great first step. I know it's not a resolution. It's not a step towards resolution, but it's a step towards connectedness.
Right.
And I promise you that connection is part of the solution, right?
Absolutely.
So already we've made that connection that I'm talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And then another really great thing to say, and it certainly depends on people's comfort level, is either I can help you or I'm going to work really hard to make sure I connect you to someone that can help you. You can allow yourself or people to say, I'm not sure what to do in this situation. There's a sense of vulnerability that we as adults don't, like, we're supposed to know everything.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if anybody's like doing 7th or 9th grade math at my house, but like we are at my house, but I don't know how to do everything. It's also okay that I don't know the answer. So I don't have an exact answer for you of what you need to say to every youth when they come up to you with this statement, because every situation is different. And so I would want to know who that athlete is and what my relationship is. This the first practice and I've just met them? Or if I've been coaching this kid for 4 years and I know their parents and their siblings, and like I can really get in with this family and hold their hand while they work through it. And so it's such a variety of things that you can do. But the thing you can absolutely do is say what's true. Thank you for telling me. I'm so glad that you trusted me to tell me that information. And either I know what my next step is going to be, I want to do this, or I'm not sure of what my next step is going to be. And so I'm going to go ahead and engage this other adult who is a helping professional, and I'm going to work alongside you guys. I'm not going to pass you off, but I'm going to work alongside you to make sure that we get you what you need today to keep you safe.
So would the next step be to contact their parents? Where would the parents fit in this scenario? If they told their coach, what should the coach do in regard to the parents?
Yeah. So there's a lot of, for people that hold professional license, there's a lot of duty to warn, liability requirements that we have. And I'm assuming that you're talking about athletes who are minors in this situation. And so if we have athletes that are minors, it is really important, again, just like disclosing child abuse, it's not information that we get to hold on to and not tell anybody. We know about the child sexual abuse scandals in sports, and we know that information was actually held by adults and made much, much worse. And so this is the same scenario, and you don't necessarily have to give your reasons or excuse yourself, for that, but it is important to share with a youth very openly what you are going to do. Hey, one of my requirements as a professional is that I do have to share this. In fact, I could lose my job, I could lose my license, I could lose some of my things, but more importantly, it's important that the adults around you know that you're feeling this way. We can strategize together how we tell them and how I can help you manage their response. Right. So if you tell parents and they're very worried and they take a great action and appropriate action, that's good. If parents go, oh, they're always doing this, we hear this every day and they're being dramatic, then we help the youth process that and try and get the help they need through the systems. So again, there isn't a one size fits all answer, but we do have to communicate with the caregivers for that youth. That's just something that's an absolute must.
So then I want to take you to the next arena, which is the parents. It's like we got the coaches, they have this legal obligation, but I've worked with a lot of parents that their children have attempted and what do you do as a parent when you see some signs, red flags, kids angry, resistant to getting help? What can you do?
So say more about that. If you're a parent and you're seeing some signs in your child and the child is not wanting service?
Yeah, the child's down, they're depressed, and they don't want services really.
Yeah, such a tough situation. We call those help-seeking behaviors.
Yeah.
So how do we increase any person's help-seeking behavior, whether that be the youth's help-seeking behavior or whether the youth wants help and the parent is sort of not wanting to engage in that service for a number of reasons. And so there are a number of ways to increase someone's help-seeking behaviors. I think the very first question is why? What is the barrier to seeking help? Is it money? Is it time? Is it the worry of what people will think? Is it, I've done it before and had a really bad experience. It didn't help last time. Or does mom say, well, I went to therapy once when I was little. And what are the barriers? Because we don't know how to overcome the barriers without actually asking what they are. And I say that very simplistically, as if a teenager is just going to tell you the barrier, right? I appreciate that. You have to be like, tell me why you don't want to do that. And they're like, oh, I would love to tell you why I don't want to do that. I mean, I understand that's not how that happens, but in the course of it, that is what we're trying to determine. What is the barrier to seeking help?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. And they're screaming
I was
for
going
help.
to try to ask Julie that. Julie, have
Yeah.
you experienced any of these areas? Like do you,
Which
with
one?
people, families, like with just the families that are connected to your children and all that, or as far as what they, brought it
What
out,
they
very,
do. Unfortunately, most of them, I did not know the parents.
Okay.
One set I did know the parents of, and it was a household that had a lot of dysfunction and a lot of chaos in it. So I say this, I don't, it didn't necessarily surprise me that that young man took his life, because his life was chaos and he was in and out of different institutions and on the street and this and that. So it didn't kind of come as a big surprise. I do know, even though his house was full of chaos, the parents did try to get some help. I know he had spent some time in a psychiatric ward and different things like that. But I don't know what you do with stuff like that. I know my own instance of talking to my kids. A lot of times when they're in that spot, they don't want to talk.
Right.
They don't want to talk, even if you use all the great techniques that, we talk about with active listening and everything else. They don't want to open up. And then if they don't want to get help, I myself, having dealt with, kids that were struggling, I just felt lost. I didn't know what to do with it. They don't want to get help. You can't force them to get help. They need help. And then what do? You just sit back and watch this train wreck, is kind of how it felt to me. But I don't know what other parents are doing, how they tackle it. We've moved away from there, so I'm not in contact with a lot of those folks. But I don't know.
One question I have, Gwen, based upon like that kind of struggles that parents have, does it sever the relationship if the parent says, let me just go get a professional instead of the constant attempts? So if they said they don't want to talk, they respected the I don't want to talk barrier, but then they came back with the professional because they've already communicated they had an issue. Like, how does that approach? In your field, what do you see with that?
Yeah, I think there's a number of times where a parent, I would imagine, feels really desperate, right? And so, and when you're watching your child or a child and youth really struggle like that, and so despite the youth's statements that they don't want to participate in that, they might say, too bad, we're going to this, doctor's office, we're going to this therapist's office, we're inviting, a helper into our home, whatever that is. And there's really no way to force someone to engage, or even if they were to engage, you can't force them to really soak that in. That's a choice that people have to make. And so then the other side of that is to really sit alongside them and to do things like remind them that they are loved, and remind them of that you want them to be on this earth, and that you are thinking about their future, and you can picture things for their future. And youth their brains are not fully developed yet. We know that, and even though we know it, we have a hard time sometimes remembering that is why they are responding the ways that they are responding a lot of times. And so it's hard for them to see the future, right? And so sometimes if you can get them to talk about the future, about what they might see, then that can be helpful. And it doesn't necessarily eliminate their current level of pain, but it might prevent suicide. So preventing suicide does not necessarily mean it automatically equate to healthy mental status, right? Like, you might still be very depressed or very anxious or in a whole lot of pain, but not attempting or completing suicide, so that's good. At least we've made it that far along the spectrum of health. And so if we can help them think about the future, then if they can see themselves in the future, that's positive. So if they can feel love and experience love and support, and even if you're not ready to talk, just know that I'm here. I am. So it doesn't necessarily, it's not an automatic to resolution. It's not going to completely resolve the issue, but it is still important for them to know that they have adults and other people that care about them. And so again, that's where sort of coach roles come in, right?
Yeah.
So what if that's not what they're getting at home? So how do you fulfill that role in another area of their life? Is really important. And so again, sort of holistically saying, I'm here for you, no matter what might be going on. And then you have to demonstrate that consistently, right? Not without barriers, not without boundaries, because we certainly want our coaches to have boundaries. But if you can say that I am here for you, and then demonstrate that follow-up, then a student athlete might say, okay, I am feeling this way. I could reach out to my coach. I could reach out to this other safe adult. If mom's not my safe adult today, then I might have another safe adult, helping them identify safe adults in their lives.
Yes. So,
who are those? It might be your friend's parent. It
Yes.
might be one of the teachers. It might be another adult professional in your life. It might be a grandparent. It could be anybody. But do you have those people who are your safe people that you can communicate with when you're feeling that amount of pain? We talk a lot about suicide as it relates to pain, and certainly for athletes, there's a physical pain level, or maybe retired athletes sometimes even more, how much pain the body experiences later in life. That's where we get into a lot of substance use to manage pain. But pain, whether it be chronic physical pain or emotional pain, that level is usually what we're watching when people are feeling like they want to do a suicide attempt. I just want the pain to stop. I want this feeling that I have. The only way I can figure out to stop it is just to end the situation. That's a stopping point. And I can't really see beyond it, right? What happens on the other side of it. And so helping them on the other side is important.
Gwen, here's one of the challenges. I've had these talks with coaches, and do they want to open up the team to be able to have those suicide or the sexual abuse or those kinds of conversations? Because it's legality wise for them, they're afraid of, well, I don't know what to do if this happens, and what if they tell me they're being touched at home, and how do I handle these? I just want to, that's not my role as a coach. I want to stay out of that.
Yeah. So again, my expertise area is in child abuse, so I'll use the example there, and I think it very much applies here. I think you develop a code of conduct, and you develop written information for all of your staff to know, so that nobody's having to figure that out on the fly. And that the athletes that are engaged, whether it be club programming, certainly school districts have, their hand in what's going on there, and that's good. But in a club program, it's a really great idea to set out that code of conduct and make sure that every professional, every adult that's involved understands what our boundaries are and what our expectations, and that families understand that. And so when we put that information out in writing up front, it says, these things are important to us. Again, sleeping habits, eating habits, hydration habits, mental and physical health and well-being, body safety. When all of those things are things that I'm worried about, not just how many points they're going to score, then that's the tone that you set for. It doesn't prevent bad things from happening, because bad things are still, people are going to engage in things that is wrong, but it sets up your club or your team in a way that you are ready to talk about it, that people might feel like they could come and talk to you about it, which again, that's where some of these major child sexual abuse scandals that have happened in, Penn State several years ago, USA Gymnastics more recently, is the ability that we weren't supposed to talk about it, right? It was going to be a hush hush. When I've set the tone for we're going to talk about it, and I've said openly, I welcome those discussions, then it reframes that legality piece, I think, a little bit.
I love it. I love that. I am a firm believer.
I was going to say, Jeff, when it comes down to coach, because again, I'm in both sectors. I'm a high school varsity coach in the school system, but I'm also a club coach, and also the head lead that has to teach my coaches our handbook to make sure they understand their protocols. So 100% the upfront contract of it all is the number one thing. It has to be a completely disclosed thing. But I think that what ends up happening is the methodical activities of practice, and this is how we do it, this is what our schedule is. We don't have time to really get that much into relationships unless we're on an outside trip. Where in high school, you have some coaches are teachers, so they see their kids more interactive. I think that club window to me is like I would say the least equipped with the
Right.
amount of time, with the, just to be able to do half the stuff that we want to do in practice, let alone how you really are in your life.
Sure. So I would challenge you to say, are any of those sprints, are any of those drills more important than 5 minutes of connection at the beginning of practice or end of practice or whatever that looks like, right? We sort of get into a place of convincing ourselves. I've tried to change my language a little bit lately to I didn't have time to do that, to I didn't take the time to do that. Because I had the time, y'all. I sit around on my phone, Netflix. There is the time, right? There is the time. I'm choosing to do something different with my time, and I'm not shaming myself or shaming anybody else for doing any of that. But that is, so there is the time period of practice. You don't have to add on time to practice, but it's a little bit like it's prevention work. We say, a little bit of prevention goes a long way. And so my belief, and maybe I'm a little sunshiny here, my belief is that your team might even function better together when the first 5 or 10 minutes are spent on connectedness.
Yes.
And, so we're going to play well as a team if we are connected, not only because we've now passed the ball a lot, we've got our passing drills down, but also because we now have connected and I have empathy because now I know that this kid who usually drives me crazy in practice is going through some stuff.
Yes.
That kid's going through some stuff.
Yes.
So I still need him to follow the drills and shut his mouth and hold his ball and do all the things that I've been asking him to do. But I'm also like, I feel you. I feel you, kid. And I want to make sure you feel safe at practice tonight, even though I'm still going to go hard on you and I need you to do everything you're supposed to do. I'm not going to leave this practice tonight really like being frustrated or not liking you. I'm going to leave this practice with a sense of empathy for you. And now we're connecting the adults and the youth. And then, if you win the game, great, but we've connected and that's important.
Would you say connectedness, regardless of who it's to, is one of the best antidotes to suicide?
For sure.
Absolutely. You just hit it spot on. I think that we hear a lot, and certainly at the beginning of school, we see some of the little memes and stuff go by that, reframe an attention-seeking child to a connection-seeking child, right? So we go, oh, that kid is always seeking attention, always wanting attention, most likely wanting connection, it is attention. They're wanting connection. They're wanting somebody to look. Eye contact is so desperately important. And we probably take it for granted. Those of us that get it regularly and give it regularly, we take it for granted. But if no one ever looks at you, then you're going to do something to get a look, whether it's a look or a good look, whatever. They need, they need connection. Yeah.
If they feel invisible.
You just backed up probably like one of my favorite things to do is to go into a team just for a little while, 2 or 3 times as a group, and just let them talk and own their stuff with each other and just to watch what happens after that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The connectedness changes their level of performance, and that's what we're about. We're peak performers and all that kind of stuff, but it's what everybody needs. All my addicts, if they are looking for connectedness. All the people I work with in a lot of arenas are the one thing that's missing out of their life is feeling connected to something or someone.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's teaching them to connect to each other. That's also really valuable. That's a skill they do not get on these. They don't get them on these. And we don't get them on those. I'm not saying they're the only people on them, right? Like you can't connect in the same way. And so we have to work on connections. So taking that 5 and 10 minutes out of practice to teach them to connect with each other while you're connecting with them too is valuable.
Yeah. And a lot of times we see things like that as a waste of time when in my arena, it's like, oh no, that is the key, the crux of making the team work together. And so many different things like talking about serious issues that are going on, whether it's with a friend or with us or somebody, but getting that out because suicides happen because we're isolated. We hold stuff in.
Yeah, absolutely. We're dealing with the pain in isolation. And that goes back to, that so many people are dealing with it in isolation. They're not seeking the help. And so they're not the clients that are coming in every week saying, I'm really feeling suicidal. I'm really feeling suicidal. It's somebody else that's never walked through our doors. And so how do we reach those people? And how do we reach those? And so we do that holistically, right? We do that with a holistic, really primary and tertiary prevention efforts, right?
Well, it would be great if we had enough therapists to deal with everybody out there that was struggling with an issue.
Yeah.
But I'm not thinking that's going to be the case.
Well, I know there's a shortage of therapists right now, but I also know that then it becomes about teaching empathy, throughout the community. There's less need if we can find connection, throughout our whole community. Whereas I don't have to only go to therapy to try and, work on some of that. Love therapy, totally applaud it, enjoy it myself. But it's not the only answer, right?
Right, exactly. The bigger answer is more people that are willing to listen, I think, and put it out there. And like as a coach, I was always scared legally. I don't want to talk about that stuff with them because then I'm going to get in trouble and then I'm going to have to deal with that stuff. The school's going to be mad at me. Then I got to report. Then, oh God, no. So I didn't hear that. I just kind of, I'm really struggling. It's like I just kind of blew over that. But that's wrong because coaches are who kids talk to. They're coaches and their connections that they have. And who else are they going to talk to? So it's like I am such a fan in coaches being that resource. Like you said, I may not know how to do it, but I'll be there with you.
Yeah.
Whatever, if it's child abuse, if it's any of that, I'll be there with you and we'll find the right people because they're not the right people to go through the whole process with them, but they can be there.
Right. Yeah. I think a statement as simple as, hey, it looks like you're struggling today. If you have anything going on that you want to say, I'd love to hear it.
Yes.
Because it might be, I got a bad grade on my test, and you're welcoming that information just as much as you're welcoming, hey, I want to let you know somebody did something really bad to me, as much as, I'm not feeling safe in my home or I'm wanting to hurt myself. I mean, my girlfriend broke up. There's so many number of things that, youth experience in these big waves of emotion, right? So it looks like it could be something really crazy. And they say it and we're like, that's it. But to a fully formed adult brain,
right,
that's it. Oh, it was just a quiz. It was just somebody sent you a mean text. Like it's a just to us, but to them it's important. And so match that importance. Hey, I'm sorry to hear about that. I, appreciate again. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for trusting me to tell me that, why you were kind of down when you got to practice today. It's just such a connector.
Yeah.
That is definitely what I would say as a coach, that I necessarily don't do it, but in the wrong ways. I do it in funny ways because I like to keep the kids humorous to failure. Like I don't want them to be embarrassed by it. I keep it kind of funny, just let it go, roll off their back. But a lot of coaches call kids soft. Like that is like the number one expression. If you're complaining about something, if you can't do something, if you're limited by something, whatever, like get over it. You're soft. You're being soft. You're soft. And I just think that that's like, again, an auto-tune response from a lot of, especially the higher performing coaches, 100%. You're not worried about that. You gotta show some grit.
Yeah. There's a shift in coaching, I think, that's happening. I mean, it's certainly different from my generation of when I was coached. I think it will only improve. There's a way to do trauma-informed coaching and still get high performance. There is. You can't convince me that there isn't. It's no different than people saying you absolutely have to spank and whip your kids in order to get. I mean, there are ways to work with people in a trauma-informed manner and still get a high performance out of them, without shaming them, without calling them names and telling them they're soft. There is. I can tell you I need more out of you.
Yeah.
And I better performance out of you without shaming you.
Right.
That is, and those things get stuck in people's heads. Gosh, that word or that whatever name call or that, you were talking about eating disorders earlier. You hear a lot of people talk about from their eating disorders. It was triggered by one person's statement at a certain time that was stuck with them and internalized. And, so the words are very powerful. In a good way and a bad way, right? We can be very powerful with them. Yeah.
Well, Gwen, I was going to say that I think we got a great role model as a coach in Andy Reid. Man, I think he does such a good job with staying positive and not beating up the guys and being honest and shooting straight. It's like, we sucked this week, we didn't do this. And so, but I don't ever hear him beating people up. And boy,
Yeah.
have I seen that a lot in my career.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, I think when you look at his relationship with his athletes, it's just that, it's a relationship.
Yes.
It's a personal relationship and connection. There is connection there. And I think you see the results of it. And I think I can see when they have not done well, and what traumas are existing around their team and what things are happening around that. And so when the connections are failing a little bit because people are struggling and to no fault of, I'm not blaming them for any of that, but that becomes, if you step back and really look at that, that looks very clear.
They pretty much love Andy Reid. Anything that happens to Andy, the team doesn't play well.
Yeah, there you go.
When his sickness is this, it's like he's not doing. It's like, you know what? They love him.
Yeah. Very much a leader.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on today. You are a wealth of information. I am so excited that kids and people have a resource, and I think you should put your home phone number up there, your personal number, and we'll get you lots of people giving you a call to talk.
I was just thinking I needed more work. That's what I was hoping for.
Right. Well, we are here for you, and we'll pass that number out at every school, and
a lot of them already have my number.
Yeah. Well, I've put the website address to Kansas City Suicide Awareness and Prevention ticker taping across the bottom. But the other graphic that I would like to show is if you or a loved one is in crisis, here is the number that you can call or text to try to get some help and some resolve in that way. So just wanted to put that up for I guess that's a national number. Yes, it is National Suicide Prevention. And is there any other number locally, or is that the main?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, resource for coaches and everything.
Yeah. Is there anything?
I didn't bring any of that with me. I can certainly send you some of those resources. If you want to post it on your social, I can share some of that with you via email, Julie.
Great. That would be great. We'd like that.
Sure.
And to be quite honest, with the audience out there, that we work with kids that are struggling, and it doesn't always have to be in the athletic field. We deal with kids that are struggling with anxiety, struggling with suicidal thoughts, and even attempts. And if they're struggling in different ways, we are professionals that like to be there and for the athletes, basically, or for our performers, our clients. So if you are struggling with those issues and you would like to talk to somebody, you can reach out to us at, Julie.
Oh, I was going to lead that right into the GO tip, because actually
let's do the GO tip.
That is the GO tip, and then we'll get to that. The GO tip is talk to someone.
Talk to someone. Yes.
Yes.
And that's really a big picture.
Yeah, connection. There you go.
I've listened to these TED Talks on alcoholism, and the whole thing is based on lack of connection. And I start finding that is so true in every other arena of life. It's like when people are struggling, it's usually because they don't have somebody to talk to.
Right.
So connection, folks.
As a society, we're just getting more and more disconnected.
Very true.
The pandemic, I think, just exacerbated a problem that was already present. But it was already happening, whether we're buried in our phones or computers or whatever. We're not working as a community so much anymore like used to. I don't know what the deal is, but I definitely feel that there is a loss of connection across the board that's contributing to this. So my own 2 cents.
Well, and it's very true.
For what it's worth.
So we got a little bit of housekeeping to do. Next week we have Chad Rader, president of 810varsity.com, where they cover Metro high school sports with live broadcasts. Yay! You know him?
No,
yes,
I do not. You know him? Oh, okay.
I do.
All right, cool.
I'm excited about actually seeing him again. It's been too long.
Yeah, well, he's a wealth of information when it comes to youth sports in Kansas City.
For sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
Also, I want to talk a little bit about our boot camp, D.
Yeah.
Mental Toughness Boot Camp. Tell them about it.
You said you want to tell him about it. You always want to throw that to me. He brings it up. I'm going to tell him about it.
Tell them about the ideas that you're coming up with. I love it.
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody is seen or desire to have some we call experience with like the Navy SEALs, to whatever you feel like that mental toughness is. Like, we're going to put you through those types of, eating challenges, and put you through, actual physical challenges, and talk you through, team camaraderie and connection. But anything that will put you in, again, an ordeal where you're really going to be in a high stress situation and have to be able to talk through whatever anxieties, fears, or struggles you had to make you tougher, not only in life, but in the sport of choice you choose.
Right. Exactly.
So is it going to be kind of like American Ninja or Fear Factor?
No, kind of a little bit of Fear Factor. Like, the most recent one I could say is the MTV's Challenge. They do a lot of different tests and challenges, put you through different environments, put you out in like nowhere land. You have to survive, a lot of different things, again, that make you go through those stress points, getting you to your utmost stress point to see what your decisions would be, to whether curl up and quit, fight or flight, all those types of decisions to make you more mentally stable whenever you do get challenged in your sport.
And the age group is 10 to 15. Is that right? That you're going to be targeting for this?
A little older, right?
A little older? Okay.
13 to 18.
13, 17, yeah.
When they complete this, what do you want them to have achieved? What's the objective?
Definitely address their fears. Not only the fears, but the anxieties and the struggles they have whenever it comes to stress and pressure. Because, again, no matter what sport, no matter if it's a test or if it's asking a girl out to prom, it's all the same type of anxiety and pressure as far as the feel of failure. So really help them address those issues.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about fear of failure, doubt, questioning yourself, trusting, all those kinds of topics that go along with the fun activities that we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
What's the time frame? When do you think we'll have a date for that set? Or what date do you think it might be? What, November, December? What are you thinking?
Was it November? I think mid-November. Before Thanksgiving,
November,
I thought.
Right.
Before Thanksgiving.
Before Thanksgiving.
Okay. So, well, we hope to have more information on that really soon. Location and date and time and all that. Okay. Very cool.
Right.
Let's see. Last thing I would say is follow us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, Jeff's LinkedIn profile. We've got a lot of great information on there. Jeff Miner is what that is. It's not on the graphic, but that's where it is, where you can find him. So please do that. And let's see, the last thing I have, last graphic, I would say to contact us. If anybody needs our help. Well, Jeff, first tell everybody kind of who we do, who we serve. I think we may have touched on it, but say it again, who we serve and what we do.
We basically serve athletes. Well, kids, actually. It's not athletes, it's performers. Anybody that is struggling with anxiety or performance issues or doubts, or they've got confidence issues that could affect them in every area of their life. We help them overcome the worries and stresses and deal like if they're getting sick or anxious before competitions or not being able to focus. We can help people learn meditation skills and some skills that allow them to get off medication so they don't have to be on like ADHD medications. So it's like we do a lot of the natural stuff, biofeedback, some neurofeedback type stuff that helps athletes, performers get over roadblocks, basically. We do it virtually, we do it in person, and yeah, that's it. How'd I do?
That was good.
You guys impressed?
I am, totally.
Well, once again, Gwen, thank you so much for being our guest.
So much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm glad we were able to connect.
I know, small world.
It is wonderful.
Yeah.
We do have an event coming up that I would really like you to attend on November 4th. It's going to be at the Plex Pod, and it's going to be mental health awareness. And we're going to get Nami, I believe, and get a couple people to tell their stories. And I would love to have you there to be the representative for that arena, the suicide awareness stuff.
Okay. All right. I'll put it down and we'll look at my schedule and other members of KC-SAP and we'll see what we can do.
Yes, that would be great. And it'll be early in the morning. It's kind of a networking event also,
Okay.
networking and a little bit of education, presentation, that sort of thing. So 7:30, was that the time we decided on, I believe? Okay.
Yeah.
But I'll get you more information as we get a little bit closer too.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Great.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Great
you.
show.
Have a great week.
See you next week.